Welcome to the Everyone's a Critic movie review podcast. I'm your co-host, Bob Zerl. With me, as always, is professional film critic Sean Patrick. Visit us at IHateCritics.net, everyone's a critic podcast.com, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Our handle is CriticsPod. You can listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Alexa, all your podcatchers. We haven't dropped off of Spotify yet. We'll see. I don't know what kind of effort that would really do. Whatever else, patreon.com/criticspod is the best way to help support the podcast, so you can listen to our bonus episodes where we've lately been talking about music. We covered Nirvana, Metallica, and the Beatles. We got plenty more to come there. We also talked about I Spit on Your Grave, did a long, in-depth episode over that, and if you give us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts, the next person to do that will be getting a anniversary 4K Blu-ray of that. It's a pretty nice packaging. It's a really nice, other than the content. Next
really just makes a nice companion piece to our episode. That's the point,
right? It's there for the next person to give us an Apple review. And then TeePublic, if you want to head over to IHateCritics.net, click on the TeePublic link up in the right-hand corner or search Critics Pod over at tpublic.com. All right, let's jump right into the episode. And let's find my pictures. And we will start with The Great Postal Heist.
The Great Postal Heist is a documentary made by a guy who was the son of somebody who was a union leader for the post office and who has always sung the praises of the post office. And really, we kind of all should sing the praises of the post office because it's still a very necessary thing for a lot of people. And without it, just getting a paycheck in the mail, if you get a paycheck in the mail still, you need the post office. And the reason it's late is not because of the post office, it's because of the politicians and the people who are trying desperately to ruin the post office so they can privatize it and make money off of it. And this is a documentary about that, but it's also a documentary about the various ways over the years that many people tried to destroy the post office. One of which was just trying to micromanage it to death to get people to just quit, to try and get postal workers to quit. Do you recall this phenomenon in the 80s and early 90s of going postal?
Yes.
It was a real thing, not made up. That was not something that the media came up with. The post office was such a hard place to work and remains in many ways a very difficult place to work. Because they would note you to death, and you anything you did, the management was told to just stay on top of everything. Why did it take you this long to do this route? Why were you in the bathroom for 5 minutes? You should have, when you're only supposed to be in there for 2. I mean, just the little things to the point where they were literally driving these people insane. To the point where many of them did eventually explode and go in with a gun and start killing people. That was a real phenomenon. It was not necessarily the outcome that they were trying to get, but it was the outcome of what everybody used to the post office, because they were trying to justify their own jobs. The management people especially are trying to justify why they're there. So they're under pressure to try and keep the post office alive. At the same time, in doing so, they're driving their employees completely insane. And it's this constant thing with especially on the right, where they just denigrate the post office on a regular basis and do their best to try and dismantle it to the point where it becomes inefficient, and then they blame the employees for it being inefficient. And the employees are like, well, you changed all the rules on us and made it impossible for us to do our jobs, so what do you expect? It's a really eye-opening documentary. It's a very kind documentary to the people who work at the post office. It's very thoughtful. I mean, guys who are just really normal guys end up taking their own life just because they worked at the post office, because it became so hard to. One guy was a union leader, and he was just trying to do his job and trying to do the best for his union, and he was just getting beaten down every single day from all sides until finally he just couldn't take it anymore, and he took his own life. and this is what we're doing to people. This is what this is what the government is doing to people, especially those who want to privatize things. They, instead of putting out a bill and arguing your side to say this is why we shouldn't have a post office, they continuously just nitpick it to death. Just pull pieces off of it. Just like toying with a fly, just pulling its wings off. Like it's a constant thing, and it's these poor people who are just trying to do their job and have a job that pays their bills on a regular basis. Which the number of people, by the way, everybody talks about what a great job the post office is. Like you can't get fired from a federal job and all that. There's still most post office workers, a lot of post office workers still getting welfare. They're still getting food aid because they don't actually make that much money. So don't be talking about how great it is to work at the post office. To me, I've seen this documentary and I know how much many of them make. Many of them do make a good wage, and many of them get paid absolutely nothing. It depends on which state, and in case states get involved and fuck up their post offices, because again, they're part of that whole thing that we've got to strangle the government down to a size that you can drown it in a bathtub. So we've got to destroy things like the post office, which is just this wonderfully nice thing. The post office is just a very good thing for people, especially poor people. And that's the thing that they do. That's the thing we always do with the poorest people, is we try and take and take and take away from all the time.
Yeah, I could tell you stories, just what I've had to deal with. I mean, I work in a state that, you mentioned paychecks. You can't mail paychecks legally in Iowa.
Wow.
Yeah, so I mean, they're taking that away so that, so now people have to get direct deposit. They have to do this. They have to do that. You have to get, now something may have changed and I'm not up on the laws, but when the last time I looked, and I wasn't prepared to talk about this, so I'm just, this could be dated, but yeah. I would not be surprised if that's still the rule. But yeah, you could not mail paychecks out, which is ridiculous. We had it, like, it's so easy. Like right now, you could go to the post office and have my mail forwarded somewhere. You can just do that. Like, it's insane. And that's because they're so thin staffed. They're, everything is, all the controls are taken away. They're setting them up to fail on purpose.
Oh yeah.
And it's just, they're what keeps FedEx and UPS honest. As soon as this, when this goes away.
That's in this documentary. If you think that it's going to be easier to live your life when you're paying for UPS and you're paying for, first of all, they don't even want it. Like UPS and FedEx don't even want what the post office is going through. Like there are members of the government who want so badly to get rid of the post office and privatize it, give it to private industry. And FedEx and UPS are like, fuck that. No, please don't do that. Don't do that.
Because then you throw in the fact that, I mean, mail is also a dying, it's not dying. It'll never fully go away, I don't think. But as we go into email and direct deposit and ACH and all these different things you can do, the demand gets smaller and smaller, but it's still there. And like you're saying, to the poorest people, that they're the ones who need it the most. Right. I don't know how a private company, like you said, why would UPS want to do this? It's insane.
Oh, by the way, do you want to know why the budget of the post office continues to come up short every year? Because the post office is so shorthanded, they actually have to hire FedEx and UPS to come and take some of the mail for them. And then somebody sits in Washington and goes, well, why is the budget? Why are you guys not under budget? Because you're cut all of our people away and we're forced to hire UPS and FedEx to send the mail, you fucking assholes.
Yeah, I wasn't sure what this was about. I didn't know it was a documentary when we brought it up last week, and now, I mean, it sounds like one of those documentaries that'll really piss you off, and then it's also one of those documentaries that the right will be like, well, it's a documentary, you can never trust those things. But I'm definitely interested. Is it available right now?
This is actually like very worded documentary. Yeah, it's available everywhere as far as I know. And the guy who made the documentary, like I said, his dad was a union rep for the for the post office, and he loves the post office, and he has a lot of really nice things to say about it. So there's a little bit of warmth on top of the this stuff that is completely outrageous about it.
Yeah, it's just people want to privatize everything, and they're going to be. I don't know. I'm already. Not to get us. Just ignore the school talk. We can wait for that documentary to come out. All right. Let's move on to. Is this Charli XCX Alone Together, the pop star?
Yes, Charli XCX Alone Together is a documentary about the pop star Charli XCX and her time during the COVID pandemic. Everybody was locked at home. A lot of people in Los Angeles weren't leaving their homes very often at all, if at all. And she was, locked up in her place with her boyfriend and two of her managers. And she decided that she was going to make a record while she was in quarantine. And while she did that, she was also, sharing that experience with a large group of her fans via Zoom. And this movie is about, like the pandemic and about being shuttered in, alone together, if you will. And, people from different places, going on social media and being together in a different way. But it's also about the weird sort of parasocial relationship that we have with celebrities and how that is changing in so many weird ways. This is a very, very soft on that idea. Like, it doesn't examine that idea, the possibility of where that type of association could go. It's a very much a very love letter to her fans, if you will. It's not vapid, like it's not completely useless or anything. And I think she's a very interesting person, and she certainly carries this documentary well. I think I'm more interested in the ideas that this movie kind of brings up and brushes over, as opposed to the actual movie itself. Because I'm not a Charli XCX fan. Of heard her music, it's fine. But what I'm more interested in is that the way that we kind of blur the lines between a celebrity's life and their celebrity with a fan, and here she is like letting fans write songs for her. Like she's going online, like, I'm having trouble with this song. And so she calls a Zoom meeting with her fans and people suggest lyrics to her. And it's like, you can just imagine a lawyer going, oh, fuck. Some copyright lawyer just losing his shit looking at that. But she's being, just being cool and having that moment with them, sharing with them the song for the first time, before everybody else gets to hear it. And it's certainly lovely to see that, but it's not like, in a different way, she would never invite these people to her home to do this. Like, and no celebrity is going to invite people into their home like this, but social media and Zoom have kind of changed the way we interact. And I'm kind of fascinated by where that's going. Like, when everybody has a Twitch stream and everybody has their live stream that they can do, their Zoom meeting that they can call, at some point, when does that parasocial relationship cross the line from being a healthy interaction with fans to something that becomes, like what we saw in the 80s, where, a guy shows up at a TV star's house and murders her on her doorstep. Like, he thought he was her girlfriend. She was his girlfriend. So I don't know. I'm fascinated by that. And this movie kind of, again, it brushes across that very, very lightly, because it's a very celebratory documentary, but still it raises a few interesting questions.
Yeah, I mean, that scenario you brought up is never going to go away. Somebody, mentally unhealthy, thinking they're dating the person or whatever.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I don't know. It's also a safer way to meet fans. It sounds interesting. I'm neither here nor there. I'm old, so it's not, that's... I'm not bad-mouthing her music. I'm an old person. I'm in my 40s, so I'm not her demographic. My daughter's seen her in concert, opening for Halsey, I think. And I mean, I'm interested in their ideas, and the idea of, being old. When you said her fans wrote her music, before you even said it, right away I'm thinking I'm going with the lawyer thing. That's what my head is. And I'm like, there must have been some sort of agreement before the Zoom meetings. There had to be something in place. But I don't know. It sounds pretty cool. I mean, who wouldn't want to? If I had a chance to, be a part of Joe Perry and Steven Tyler writing songs, and I could actually submit something to them and they used it, that would be amazing. And I wouldn't even need the credit. It would just be all I need to do is know. It's that simple. So I think that's really, really cool. And
it's really, and it's so young. This whole concept of where we are right now is such an early stage. We really don't know like the long-term impact of this type of interaction between celebrities and fans. Because I mean, we had nothing like this. When in my mom's age, or even my mom, because my mom was very old, but like, just people who grew up like around the Beatles, the best you could do is maybe send a letter to Apple Records and get a form letter back that had a stamp of like Paul and name, some secretary put on it. Like that was the closest you were going to get to a celebrity. And now, here these people are sitting in a Zoom, with Charli. They're just chatting with her like friends, and it's so different. It's just so very, very different.
The cool thing is when that happens, the world shrinks, and then, I mean, I think there's a lot of good that can come out of it. Obviously, there's bad too. People get more jaded, and I don't know. But it's also good to not, I don't know. I think in general, mental illness aside, it's good to, I don't think a lot of these celebrities like being on pedestals, like they did back in the 60s and 70s. And whether they liked it or not, they were.
It's not healthy, though. You're right. That's a good point, is that it's really not healthy to be deified that way and to be so separated from the rest of the world. And that's actually, there's again, I don't think this movie is particularly serious, but it shows a lovely kind of fan interaction. Like there's no negativity. This is a really wonderful, inclusive community that she seems to have built. At least, again, this is heavily edited. We don't see any of the negative stuff at all. But the community that we do see is very healthy, very inclusive, very supportive of each other, and that's a wonderful side of this.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it just seems like a really cool idea, and I'm glad it exists. Anything else on Charli XCX?
Not really. It's mostly just for fans, or if you're kind of interested in the idea of parasocial celebrity relationships, like. Certainly, I find that sociological aspect of it pretty fascinating. That this is at least an introduction to that.
Well, yeah, and this is totally off topic, but it's within the music. Like my son goes to a lot of concerts with me. My daughter does not. She used to, but now she doesn't like anything I like, and so now she's playing my son's the favorite kid, and she's hated. I'm like, well, I don't. You saw Halsey and Pink and all these other people years ago, but two, they don't come here. All these bands I like come here, and she's like, "Well, take me to go see Adele." I'm like, "Adele's in Vegas, and that's it." But my son's favorite band, they're called Ice Nine Kills. They're some metal band they kind of parody horror movies. They're playing Vegas, opening for Metallica. I'm still not going, but it would have been pretty funny though. My daughter, though. Anyway, that was just a side bullshit.
Yeah.
They, Them, Us, the next movie we'll talk about.
Yeah, They, Them, Us stars Joey Slotnick as a film professor who is going through a divorce. He's breaking up his family with his wife and his two kids, and he's going out into the dating world, and he meets an artist played by Amy Hargraves, who has a bit of a secret. She's kind of into kink. She likes S&M, and so he's going to try and open himself up to that. Meanwhile, he's got two kids, one of whom's kind of way into drugs. The other one's kind of way into, well, why isn't anybody doing something about my brother? Because he's into drugs. And they're just kind of whiny, and they blame their parents for all their problems because their parents are divorced and whatnot. Fine. The artist herself also has two children, one of whom is a non-binary person who uses they, them pronouns. And based on the title, you'd think that's important, but it's not. That character is basically in existence to pad out the story about Joey Slotnick's character and how he woke and tries to befriend this person by getting their pronouns correct and trying to correct other people when they don't get them right, which is a nice quality to have. But here's the problem: is that the Joey Slotnick character is the main character, and he's this center of the story, and he has no real arc, because when we meet him, like, yes, he's gotten divorced and he's got these two kids that hate him, and he's trying to rebuild that relationship and get back into dating, but he's pretty well open to everything. Like, he's perfectly accepting of the non-binary person, tries to do his best there. He's very caring about his kids, even if they're angry at him all the time. And when it comes to the kink stuff, he's very open to trying to figure out how to do that and get into it and start to like it. So what's the arc then? Like, what is where he starts to where he is not that far. So there's not really much of any kind of story here. It's a guy who goes from being open and honest and caring to being a little more open, honest, and caring. And it's a little awkward, and it's kind of like, it plays like 50 Shades of Grey meets Full House. Like, it's just, there's stuff in here that is just, it's like a S&M sitcom, like all those wacky parents who like to spank each other, and then they've got these kids. One of them's kind of a druggie. It feels like it would be a very modern sitcom.
Yeah, usually the acceptance is after the arc of the movie or show.
Right. You start off
starting with acceptance.
Yeah, exactly. Like, he should start from a place where he is repressed and not open. And then this woman kind of opens his eyes to a whole new world, and he begins to, see his kids in a different way and see this non-binary kid in a different way and opens up that way. But no, everything he does, he's already very open to.
Is it just supposed to be played for laughs because he's kind of dorky looking, and putting a dorky looking guy into, woke culture mixed with this S&M bullshit is funny? Is that kind of what they're going for?
I wish that was what they're going for. Maybe that's what they're going for, but the movie's not very funny. There's some awkward kind of Modern Family style laughs that are supposed to come from the situations. Like, when he starts talking about being a dom. He works as a college professor, a film professor at a Christian college. And so he starts talking about being a dom, but when he refers to a dom, he says he's referring to God. So instead of saying dom, he starts saying God. So the kids won't know that he's talking about it, but he feels this need to talk about, dominating, sexual dominance. But he's doing so like saying, well, these things are about the Lord and not about that. And that's supposed to be funny, but it's never really funny. There's no laugh that come from this. It's very awkward, and like, no human being would do that. There isn't a human being on the planet that would act like that. And that makes it just completely unfunny. And just kind of awkward and cringy more than anything.
I mean, if you were to seriously do Full House meets 50 Shades of Grey and like really do it right, that'd be amazing. That'd be hilarious. It'd be fun. It'd be anything but boring.
Exactly.
That's a shame.
Yeah, I mean, because there's a lot of rich, opportunities here that the movie just doesn't take.
All right, let's move on to Beyond the Infinite 2 Minutes.
Beyond the Infinite 2 Minutes is one of my favorite things I've seen in a long time. This is a movie about a guy who owns a coffee shop who closes up for the night. He's going up to his apartment, which is above his coffee shop. He walks into his apartment. He's there for a couple of minutes, and suddenly his face pops up on his computer. And it's him from 2 minutes in the future. And he tells him, like, oh, that thing you're looking for, your guitar pick, it's under the carpet there. Look, there it is. And then he says, okay, now you need to come down here and tell yourself about what I just told you. So then he runs downstairs and he talks to himself 2 minutes in the past. And this loop continues, and he continues to find in very fun ways to kind of build this up. So like, one of his buddies arrives. He's got his person who works at the coffee shop with him there. They're both confused and fascinated by what's happening. So he tells them about it, and they start joining him when they'll go up the stairs and they'll talk to each other in the future and the past, and then then it all just keeps spinning and spinning and spinning. And all of it is in a single take. So the camera is constantly following this action as we're following in the moment people, like the present, and then we see both the present and the past and the future. And I'm not sure if it all adds up, but I don't care because this movie is so much fun. Like, at this premise, you wouldn't figure they would have a way to continuously up the ante, but they do. And they continuously up the ante with this outlandish ideas that just keep working, and they keep working, and it gets getting funnier and funnier. And I was just having a ball with this movie.
It's almost, I mean, in a lot of ways, it's what Speed was to action movies. This is to comedy. I mean, it starts and it just goes, and I mean, from the second it starts, you're in this movie, like you're knee deep. You can't get out, and and before you know it, it's over. But I mean, it doesn't feel short, doesn't feel long. It just kind of it's one of those movies that grabs you, and all you do is experience it. You're not really watching anything; you're just experiencing the movie because it's just so clever. Really, they could have gone anywhere. They could have gone from the most fucked up thing in the world. I mean, anything they could have done would have almost worked. I mean, he almost made, a movie you can't screw up. I mean, it really was that such a clever premise that it didn't matter where you went, and you just experienced the premise and what goes on, and it was just really, really clever and really, really fun, and just one of the best time travel movies I've ever seen. And it's such a weird time travel movie. It's the most original. I mean, it's so original, the idea of what it is, and relatable. I mean, we would all at one point at least think where they go with it, and it's just, I don't know. It was a lot of fun. And
it's so clever, like, and amazing that they did that in essentially a single take. I mean, I'm not sure how many edits. I'm sure there is an edit somewhere in the movie, but the way they make it feel so seamless with the camera just constantly following these characters around this building set that they have, that is just, it's so brilliant. The choices that he makes are just so smart, and it literally does feel like they did this in real time, which I can't say that's for sure. I wasn't counting to make sure everything was 2 minutes before somebody else walked in, but like, I felt like I could, with a stopwatch, just kind of watch this movie and see if it was every 2 minutes this is changing to something else. Because it is just, it's so much fun.
That would almost have to be in your second or third viewing, because when it starts, you don't have, I mean, you don't even think about the one take again. That just leaves your head till you're done with the movie.
Yeah.
I don't know. It flows together so seamless. Everything about it is seamless and clever, and I highly recommend anybody go watch this. I mean, it is foreign film, so you got to read it, but it's so worth it. I mean, it's an easy one to digest. It really is, because, like I said, you're in it as soon as it starts, and you're not getting out.
We do so many bad American remakes. I think maybe a good director could do this one some justice. They could try to pull this off in the same way. They'd probably fuck it up, but this is the kind of movie, because it's based solely, like, really the success of this movie isn't even the gimmick. It's, for me, that cast is just having so much fun doing this. The excitement on their faces, they're making these new little discoveries, and one of those, out how we can see a little bit further into the future so we can take advantage of it. And it's like, okay, we're 8 minutes ahead. Now we're 10. Now look.
Yeah.
It's just, the guys are just having a ball doing this. And they come up with these just ingenious set pieces where they're like talking to a guy who's in the past to tell him what he needs to in the future to do what he's about to do. Again, I don't know if it all really adds up, but it feels like it adds up, and that's really what matters. And then it's just the energy and excitement, because it feels like they're coming up with this on the fly. It really feels like they're experiencing this as it happens, which is so cool.
You'd never get a chance to question anything, because the movie just goes. This is one of those movies too that I don't want them to remake. I don't even care. It'd probably be good, Let Me In's good. The David Fincher Dragon Tattoo movie's good, but they don't need to exist because those other movies are so fantastic. There's no sense in redoing them. This is in the same boat. This is digestible enough that anybody could watch it and really, quite frankly, expand their horizon a little bit. It's a good one. This is a great entry-level movie for something like that.
True.
But I all I could think of was Josh needs to see this movie, and this is the only time I wish Josh was on the podcast for this. For this is the type of thing he would love, and I don't know that he'll get a chance to ever really truly watch this because he's not on it anymore, and so it's hard to make the time for it. But oh god, and it's what is it, an hour and 10 minutes, something like that? It's
70 minutes.
It's a breeze, but again, the experience is so great that you lose track of time, so you don't know if it's long or short. It's that neat.
Yeah, it's a great year. It's a great year for foreign films so far. I'm loving these foreign movies that we're getting.
So clever, so original, just great. So we need to talk about Cosby is on Showtime now.
Yes, so we need to talk about Cosby as a 4-hour documentary by director and comedian W. Kamau Bell, and it's about reckoning with the legacy of Bill Cosby, who, for a lot of people, myself included, your childhood kind of revolved around him. We were talking about parasocial relationships before. In a way, he was really the first celebrity who really created like a serious parasocial relationship with the world, or with the United States, with the way he was just involved in the lives of so many people from the 1960s through the 1980s, even into the early 90s. He was a part of your life. As a kid, I'm a little older than you. I watched Fat Albert. I watched Picture Pages. I saw him on reruns of The Electric Company. So I was introduced to him at a very young age. And then Cosby Show arrived when I was 8 years old and was on until I was 18, 20 years old. Like, it lasted forever during that time frame. And so again, and with having an absent father as I did, I watched the Cosby Show a lot, looking for that kind of connection. So I felt that kind of connection with Bill. And then I saw Bill Cosby himself, and being a comedy nerd and watching a lot of comedy, as much as I loved George Carlin and Bill Hicks, and those are the things that I loved and listened to a lot, if I was going to quote something, it was going to be Bill Cosby himself. I quoted that constantly. My buddy Mikey and I still, if we get together, one of us is going to throw out a reference to himself, but now it's different. It's rueful and sad as opposed to being funny, because all the time that we were bonding with him and he was forging a bond with people from childhood to adulthood, he was using the trust that he built up to trick women into taking a drink and then having sex with him while they're unconscious. And you're trying to reckon those two things. Here's this person who granted, he may never have intended to have this connection with you specifically, obviously, but it did. It existed. That relationship, especially, especially with W. Kamau Bell and the Black community, this was the model of success in the 80s. When you looked at success, you maybe saw Michael Jackson and then you saw Bill Cosby. And that was your model for what, striving was. And so to have that all ripped away by finding out what he did, it's heartbreaking. And now we're just kind of reckoning with what that was. And that's what this series is about trying to come to terms with that, how this thing meant so much to so many people for so long. This person and his persona meant so much to so many people for so long, and how it has a completely different meaning now.
Yeah, I'm only 1.5 episodes in, but it's, and like you said, you're a little bit young. I saw Picture Pages and Fat Albert and the Cosby Show, but I mean, sadly, my TV dads were Reginald Vell Johnson and Bob Saget, so those were my shows. But at the same time, he was kind of what, like, I guess the Beatles of comedy. Everything kind of came out of him. All the greats go back and reference Cosby, and it's and maybe not the Beatles, but whatever it is, he was the umbrella over a lot of, the influence of a lot of great comedians after him. And so, I had some of his records. I didn't necessarily listen to them, but I would go to thrift shops and buy them and whatever. And the weird part is, and I remember like Eddie Murphy and Richard Pryor and talking about how Bill Cosby would come to them and yell at them for saying bad words. I remember Bill Cosby approached Ozzy Osbourne on an airplane and said his TV show was terrible because they were saying swear words too much. And this was like 15 years ago or whatever when they had their reality show. And Sharon Osbourne, she said this in an interview. That's how I heard it. Said, "Well, you were drugging women, so you're not gonna talk to us about that." So that was kind of when I started here. I don't know if that was real or not. I mean, I know that I saw that. So I've heard these rumors before, but I didn't know they were real at the time or what they were. And then all it took was one comedian, Hannibal Buress, to make a joke, and it just seemed to get legs, which was weird. Because had you heard it at all before it got legs?
Vaguely, like there's a bit in the documentary where they talk about 2005 when he was first confronted and charges were made, but it was very under publicized at that time. There was not a lot of attention paid to it. It made a couple column inches here and there, but it got no traction whatsoever until Hannibal did what he did, which is, even he doesn't want to talk about it anymore. No. He does not talk about this at all. He's not in the documentary. He's in the documentary because they talk about him being the impetus for this, but he himself does not sit down for an interview to talk about this because he doesn't want this to be, Hannibal Buress's legacy. He ruined Bill Cosby.
It is, but I'm only an episode and a half in, but like he spends a lot of time with the women that want to talk about it. And they tell their story, and there's I'm sure they edit it to make it, but it's not much. It's pretty unfiltered, and it's
pretty much a camera pointed at these women telling the same story in separate places, and it's the same story every time. Bill hands me a drink, I take a drink, I wake up hours later naked in his bed, and he's telling me that I need to leave. And over and over again.
And then you see all the signs throughout his entire career where he was talking about doing it, not, hinting at it or whatever. It's from day one up until recently. And it's
there's a big bit in the documentary about Spanish fly. Right. That is a real thing. Spanish fly. They even talked to a expert in chemicals about what Spanish fly was. And Bill had a big, long thing on one of his records as a long, lengthy bit about Spanish fly. But even when you get to the Cosby Show, he made this type of barbecue sauce where he had some sort of special ingredient. And what you're looking at are his kids and their wives kind of cuddling up to each other and falling in love again because they had Bill's magic barbecue sauce. And it's like, good God, he wasn't fucking hiding it at all.
Yeah, it was, and which just adds another layer to it. I don't know. I'm not looking forward to it, but I'm interested in watching the rest of it because I literally paused episode 2 to do the podcast right now. So I'm, it's fascinating in all the wrong ways.
Yeah,
and it's just a shame because. You don't want anybody to be like this ever,
Right, yeah, exactly.
One thing they addressed early on, and I don't know if they stay with it, is just kind of how the times of when he started doing this, it was almost accepted,
Yeah.
And that alone is just kind of... There's a whole thing with Barbara Walters where she dressed up as a Playboy bunny as a waitress. And it is just so cringeworthy to watch, which I hate using that word because that's what my kids would say. But watching the look on her face, watching the anchor who's working with her, the way he talks to her is just like, oh my God. I'm so glad we don't talk like that anymore.
Hugh Downs, who remains, that's merely 30 more years of his career ahead of that. After that,
right,
he was still in the news, and here he is in the early 1970s talking about how great Barbara looks in that bunny costume. I like looking at you in that bunny costume. That is the banter they're doing on a news show.
And it's not just like a throwaway comment. I mean, they
Superman is no
there.
joke.
Right. They hang out there and talk. I mean, it just is awkward. And the look on her face is, and she came from an era where you had to accept that. But it was just, I don't know. I'm glad. Not that we're perfect, but.
If anybody wants to talk about, that, you want to question these women and why they didn't come forward before, that's why. They were in an era where you didn't have anybody to tell this to. If you took what happened to you to a police department in that day and age in 1968, 1971, and said some guy drugged you and raped you, they go, yeah, right. Like, Quaaludes were everywhere. People were taking Quaaludes for everything. and women would willingly take Quaaludes. Like, there's a woman who tells a story about how Bill had some Quaaludes. Oh, great. Took one. Like, you're just trusting the fact that you're there with this guy. Like, that's the insidious part of it, is that he used being Bill Cosby and the relationship that he created with the world as cover to do this. Because a woman would see, well, this is Bill Cosby. I can go to Bill Cosby's dressing room and nothing's going to happen. It's no big deal. It's Bill Cosby. What have I got to worry about? And he used that against them. He used his own persona that he created against them, and that's what makes us so gross and insidious. And and again, it all leads me back to Louis C.K., who may not have hidden what he was doing, but certainly there was an element of that too, where Louis C.K., he's an icon, he's an influencer, he's somebody who is going to help my career. I can go see him in his dressing room. Oh, by the way, there he is yanking his crank in front of me. Great,
right? And there's also this narcissism. I think that's the right word that needs
absolutely
that. I think, like, Louis C.K. puts it on himself. I am an influencer, and they need, and I think Cosby clearly did.
Entitlement.
They go into that a lot. And then, back to what you were saying about them trusting him, then they'll wake up naked and then be embarrassed that they embarrassed themselves in front of, a celebrity. They think they got too drunk and they messed up, and not knowing they were drugged. And I don't know. I can't imagine, what they had to go through. And
it really, I know I'm going off on a tangent a bit here, but I can just remember, like, in the 90s, there would be the Bill Clinton culture was so fucked up. When you really boil down to it now, and you look back on it, like, there was a comedian who used to do a joke about how women across the country should get down on their knees and thank Bill Clinton for what he did for women. Mm-hmm. And it's like, Jesus fucking Christ. Like, this is the culture that we've come up with. Like, that's supposed to be funny to people. And you look at it now, that's severely fucked up.
Right. No, it's, you just watch it, how the women's movement never really takes off. You have this whole civil rights thing going on, pushing women down in the middle of it. And it's even to today, it keeps popping back up, and there's, comedians go get up on stage. Even now, women need to shut up. They're, they're the reason for cancel culture and this and that. And it's on both sides. It's ridiculous that part of, there is still people trying to hold women down more. I'm not saying they have it worse than everybody else, but there definitely seems to be just kind of a throwaway thought when it comes to that movement, and not really taking it serious because there's white women involved. I don't know. It's not really what this documentary is about, but it does, especially during that Playboy era, how important Hugh Hefner was to the civil rights movement. Not necessarily the best to women.
Right.
Not that he was drugging them, but yeah.
I mean, we don't know. There's some stuff coming out now.
I know. Yeah. He's one person he was not my TV dad, Hugh Hefner. All right. Let's talk about Sundance.
Slam dance is actually where I was.
Slam dance. Never mind. I misread that. So slam dance. Let's talk about slam dance. Everybody at YouTube, pretend you're not looking at this.
So I was doing some virtual coverage of the Slam Dance Film Festival this week. I saw a couple of pretty interesting movies. One of them is called Paris is in Harlem, and this is the story of one night in Harlem in 2017 when New York lifted the ban on dancing in nightclubs. Did you know that New York had a law against dancing in nightclubs?
No.
They did until 2017 when it was finally revoked. And the reason they had this law was not because they were actually busting any nightclubs, but because they were busting black-owned jazz clubs in Harlem. That was the reason they had it. It was a fully, completely racist law that they put in place to punish black business owners in Harlem. And cops would patrol there and go into bars where black people were, and they'd see if they saw anybody start to dance, citation, over and over again. There's this brilliant jazz club there called Paris Blues in Harlem, and that's kind of the central point of this movie. But it's really, and I know you're going to hate this, but it's kind of a Crash sort of scenario where there's a lot of connected stories going about, there's a college professor who's in trouble because he said the N-word in class, but he was talking about Spike Lee, so he's very upset. I mean, how can I talk about Spike Lee and not say the N-word? So he's in trouble, and his story is kind of happening. And then there's a female teacher who herself is being fired from her job, even though she was one of the people who came up with Title IX. How can you hold this against me? I came up with Title IX. This is part of what I fought for. And she's being accused of having sexually harassed a male student. And so that's happening. It's all coming together at this jazz club that night where there's apparently going to be a shooting. But that is something that happens, but you'll have to see the movie to see how it plays out. The movie has this style of, if you've ever seen the movie Time Code with Mike Figgis, these interlocking things where there's multiple things happening on the screen at the same time. And I do enjoy the style, and it got very kinetic vibe. The soundtrack is really fantastic. The characters are really interesting, and it's not necessarily one of those movies where everything is connected. It's not Crash. It's not up its own ass that way, but it is similarly a lot of characters, a lot of interlocking stories that end up in one spot at the end. And
I'm not anti those movies. It's just that sometimes they're hard to pull off, and I think you can see the cracks in the plot usually if you're not doing it right. And so, really, a movie like Beyond the Infinite 2 Minutes pulls me in so far that if it was like that, I would never notice. It's so well done. That's something that those movies aren't as easy to pull off. But I mean, maybe this one does.
I think it does. I think it's a good movie, and I do want people to see it. I think it's really good. Another movie that I saw is a really interesting character study sort of comedy. It's called Retrograde, and it's about a woman who she's helping this friend move into they're moving into a house together, and she's helping her move in. And on the way there to take her stuff over to their new house, she gets pulled over by a police officer, and she gets a $300 ticket because she was trying to merge in front of the cop, and the cop wasn't letting her in. And then when she did get in front of the cop turned on the lights, pulled her over, and gave her a citation for reckless driving. And she's like, well, no, you waved me in. And the cop's like, no, I didn't. And so you think that's just going to be an incident in the movie, but in fact, that's the movie. That's what this movie becomes about. Is for 80 minutes, it's just this woman obsessing over the fact that, no, he waved me in. I don't have to pay for this. I'm going to take this to court. I'm going to get a lawyer. I'm going to fight this no matter what happens. She gets the fine reduced to $50, and all she has to do is sign a thing saying she's guilty and move on, and she won't do it. She's so obsessed with the idea that she's right about this that she ends up she's ruining her job. She's ruining her friendships. And I was reminded of this incredible bit that Mike Birbiglia does in one of his recent comedy Comedy Hours, where he was talking about an accident that he was in that wasn't his fault, and it just kind of consumed his life. It's a very funny bit. This takes that idea and expands it out to a full-length movie, and you wouldn't think you'd be able to do it, but this is so skillful and so cleverly acted, and it keeps coming up with new ways to exploit this idea and this character that you're just kind of, you become fascinated. Like, how are you going to keep this idea alive for this long? It's an 80-minute movie, and they managed to keep that idea going throughout the entire thing and give you a satisfying conclusion. It doesn't turn into a horror movie. It doesn't turn into like she's a crazy person. It's just this one singular obsession that she has that lasts the entire movie, and it's fascinating. I was really impressed that they could make an entire movie out of that, because I mean, you'd think that's the ultimate, corner painted into that you're not going to be able to get out of, and yet they find ways to keep ticking away at that idea.
I mean, sometimes something that simple works. I mean, it sounds interesting. It reminds me of my cousin Vinny, how he became a lawyer, was getting a cop on the stand and arguing until the cop admitted he was wrong. Do you see anything else at Slam Dance?
That's all that's really worth talking about.
All right. Coincidentally, 50 years ago today, Clockwork Orange was released.
You had no idea when you picked the...
No. We were just literally playing Flickchart, and it was just like, we always talk about doing a Clockwork Orange, and you're just like, yeah, we got nothing else. Let's do it.
And it just happens to be the 50th anniversary of the release. It's like we planned it. A Clockwork Orange, of course, 1972 Stanley Kubrick, starring Malcolm McDowell as Alex, who is the leader of a gang that he calls the Droogs. I guess his friends, or he calls his friends the Droogs. He's not a Droog, I guess. I'm not sure. This is Natsep, this dialogue that he has, where he kind of uses words in a very rhythmic, musical, different sort of way that you can't pick up like contextually. You can understand what he's saying. It's just very, very different. Alex is pure evil. He's a sociopath. He's out to harm people, take things, and just generally, enrich himself and have through violence, rape, and Beethoven. And how you react to this movie is all about you. Kubrick presents all this completely unobjectively. Like, he doesn't have an objective point of view on anything that he's presenting. Like, I really don't think there's any kind of commentary on his part whatsoever. And I know that's a controversial opinion. I know some people can disagree. Like, he's saying something about state-sponsored violence, or he's saying something about, the way the culture builds violence into your head and forces you into a violent place or whatever. No, I honestly believe that Kubrick is presenting all of these images, forcing you to look at them and come up with your own interpretation of it. And there are many different ways to interpret this. On a visual level, I think it's spectacular. Like, it's an amazing looking movie. It's also a very empty in terms of, like, it has no morality. It has no lessons to learn. You're not coming away from this with anything to take home with you, unless you really want to come up with your own thing. And one of the things that the ideas that I've been pursuing, trying to find something in this movie that makes it valuable, I'm starting to wonder if maybe this is about the monstrosity of men towards women. And I know I said that Kubrick doesn't have a point of view, and I don't think that's the hard part, is I don't think he intended this. I think it's just a function of where my mind went. The first thing you see in this movie is Alex's eye. You pull back and you see these tables made of female bodies, like these castings of female bodies, naked, breasts pointed to the sky, their legs and arms used as the table legs. And there are numerous different variations of that thing. The vagina is painted specifically in a very garish, bright color. I think this is, for me, this is about the way that men treat women as sort of functionary to their needs, functionary to what they want of them. Whether it's sexually, whether it's just in life in general, you want a woman to serve you and be a function in your life as opposed to, their own life. And that theme seems to play out. There's another aspect of this movie where there's a sex scene that is actually not a rape, where Alex meets two women in a record store. He takes them back to his apartment for an orgy. And then we don't see the orgy. We see this speeded up version, like the camera is, running at 5 times the regular speed, and they're running around the room, and it's basically comical in this one static shot while all this is happening. And you're seeing nudity and you're seeing sex, but there's no eroticism to it. There's nothing sexy about this sex scene. Whereas the more violent sex scenes, he lingers in that moment. He doesn't make them erotic unless you're kind of weird, but it is presented in a way where the character of the Droog's characters maybe see this as sexy or erotic. You're turning them on and kind of daring you to be turned on by it. Again, if there's something wrong with you. But he lingers on that. That he lingers on. And that, again, is another idea, perhaps, that this is a movie about men using women for what they want and taking what they want from women. So maybe there's something to be said about that. That said, I can't say that that's what Kubrick intended. That's what I'm getting from it, but I can't say that's what he intended with this, because I honestly have no idea what Kubrick gets out of presenting any of this.
I mean, for me, where I'm getting is more like, I agree with what you're saying, but I kind of even take it a step further, and it's just having power over somebody else. Everybody in this movie is it's horrible. I mean, there's nobody that's good in this movie outside of the victims, and even some of the victims turn out to be bad later on. I think his intention is that he likes the character. Like, he's fascinated by the idea of what this character is, specifically Alex, but all of them. I think he's so interested in the character, he's just following it. He's just making a movie about it. I don't know that I agree with you. I don't think he has a point. I think he himself is a little obsessed with power. And I've heard other people theorize that as well. He's almost making a movie about himself, only obviously this is heightened. But you've heard stories of the way he treats his actors, and Malcolm Adell's got his own stories. Obviously, Shelley Duvall from The Shining has stories. At the same time, it's just like, it arguably is the most beautiful movie. I mean, artistically, you could make that argument. I get why people fall in love with this thing. I don't think the audience that likes this is the audience that's like cheering for, I Spit on Your Grave or whatever that Roger Ebert saw. That's not what this movie is.
Right.
It really just, in the end, this comes back to our Batman or Dark Knight argument, where I think Joker, the people would have blown up the ships and you think they wouldn't have. And it's like, I immediately go dark, you immediately go light. Nothing wrong with either one of that. Either one of us could have been right. In the movie, you were right. In this, they definitely all go dark, and every step of the way. From the politicians are horrible. I mean, and it's there's nothing worse than rape and murder and pedophilia and all that stuff. Not that pedophilia is not in this, but
it's in the book.
Yeah, but the book's impossible to read. At least when you're watching them say these words, you can get context around it. You got to read the book like 15 times to learn the language. And it even ends differently or something like that. Or he grows up and he's fine, which makes absolutely no. Is that how it ends? If I'm not, I think that's how.
I don't remember. I've never read the book. I've just only heard other people talk about.
I think the book was supposed to be.
You know what the best correlative for this movie?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, this reminds me in a weird way of Wolf of Wall Street, where there are no good characters, where you don't have a rooting interest, and everybody's terrible, and he's just sort of handing it to you and going, here you go. It's like, fuck, what the fuck am I supposed to watch here? What am I supposed to root for here? What am I supposed to take away from this? And I honestly don't know what to take away from this. I certainly didn't know what to take away from Wolf of Wall Street, other than I didn't enjoy that experience. And, similarly, I didn't necessarily enjoy this experience. I think like I said, I kind of enjoyed exploring the idea that maybe there was something there about that. But I mean, when you get to the prison and the Ludovico technique, that kind of stuff goes out the window and it becomes something else. Like, there's nothing really necessarily about women there, other than I guess they use a woman as a functionary to show that he can't have sex anymore after he's been treated. I was toying with an idea about this when it came to the Ludovico thing, about how Kubrick was seemingly kind of wrong about the way we experience violence. Like, the idea that you could show somebody a series of violent images and it would cause them to be against violence and capable of violence. When in fact the matter is, since then, I mean, people watch Faces of Death videos when I was a kid, like, with actual death, and we're all just kind of, it served up as entertainment, and we weren't against violence because of it. We didn't do violence because of it, but it was just sort of, we're so inured to the idea of it that it just doesn't impact us unless you actually see violence in front of you. Like, you see blood directly in front of you, you're going to react to it in some way. But when you're watching it on a screen, blood is pretty well fucking meaningless at this point.
Well, and I think the point of it in the movie is more, it's not that watching it makes you, sick. It's the fact that they're putting him in a super uncomfortable scenario for hours and hours at a time, and ultimately torturing him while he's watching it. So now he's associating.
The association of that with, I get that.
But I mean, for me, it's more about, instead of the women, like when he goes to prison, now the balance of power shifts, and you watch the people that are in power there are equally as bad as he is, at least mentally. They're not raping and killing, but what they're doing, they're going to get away with, and that's what drives me nuts more so about this than like a Wolf of Wall Street. One, I don't think Wolf of Wall Street looks as good. I don't think many movies look as good as this, sadly, which is weird. But I'm more annoyed at, because he got caught. He would have gone to jail forever, or for a very long time, and his family turned on him, and his life was no longer going to be that. These politicians are doing horrible, bad things on the side. Even the Wolf of Wall Street characters, they essentially got away with it in the end. Like the lead the character from that movie is still around doing bullshit.
He consulted on the movie,
right? I mean, so I'm more like, that frustrates me even more because there's no accountability for that end of things. And so I really did gravitate to that part of the movie when the balance of power shifted and now he was a victim. I didn't feel bad for him. I just hated those guys too. And almost to a greater extent only because they were going to get away with it. When the politician comes to him at the very end and he's in the bed and they're saying, here's what you're going to do. And you just want to reach to the screen and rip the guy's throat out. It's ridiculous. And I don't know. I was more fascinated by the movie. It's not an easy movie to watch. It's long. There is a homework element to it, but it's also just so. Again, it's, if you're into this kind of imagery, every frame you could put on your wall. I don't know why you'd want to put some of them on your wall, but those rape scenes were very artistically shot. I don't, and that it's just a weird. It's something that it's just something you got to deal with if you want to watch it. And then the scene you were talking about where they fast forwarded, there's nothing sexual about it. It's a neat idea. I liked the way it was shot. It was really cool, but it was very real and just okay. There was no power, so we fast forwarded through the, of what was going on.
And also, there's an element there too of trivializing, sex that has sexual consent versus lingering on the rape. Like, again, to me that seems to be about about how he thinks of women. Like it's not as exciting for him when they say yes.
Oh, for sure. But I think piggybacking off that, it's the power element of it that Kubrick's really into. At least that's my opinion, because there's so much power. Like, that's the focal point of every act in this movie is, the corruption of the person who has the control. And I don't think he's saying anything necessary about it. I just think he's fascinated with that idea, and he's fascinated by characters. Yeah. And just made a movie about them with without saying anything, just kind of exploring his fascinations, which, again, I think this is the fourth time I've seen it, and this is probably the time I understand it the most, I hope. Yeah. But
it's that deeply cynical idea that, that everybody's bad and everybody's enacting something on somebody else at all times, and it's always about getting yourself over the other person and being the dominant one in any room you're in.
I mean, I don't think that's entirely what it is. I think that's simplifying it, but I think it's that those that follow power tend to be like that, or not tend to be like that, but that is something that comes with power. We look at politicians today, and it's easy to say both sides are messed up, and to an extent, I agree with that, and it drives me nuts. A lot of these people, career politicians that we're holding up on a pedestal, like, they'll change the game, and it's like, no, this guy's been there forever. He hasn't done shit. So why do we think Bernie Sanders is the answer?
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's just kind of where I went with it, and it wasn't like every character was. It's just the power part of it. I really think he has fascination with that, because he was very powerful when it came to movies.
I am fascinated by the idea about how this is about really the monstrosity of men. Really, throughout, it is men who are exerting power in that way. Absolutely. And women are always either the subject of it or functional to what the man wants in some way. And absolutely. And there's certainly something to the idea that I'm not saying that Kubrick has that opinion of women. I'm not saying that at all, because I don't know what Kubrick's opinion of women is. Obviously, he's been accused many times of being a bully towards women. But I think there is an idea here that you could interpret this as a movie that is about the monstrosity of men and the what drives a man to be so monstrous, and the way that you treat a woman in this movie is indicative of that monstrosity that so many men carry.
Oh, absolutely. I think that's the best. I think what you're saying there makes way more sense to me, is the more the monstrosity of the men, especially the men seeking power. I don't know. I think Wolf of Wall Street's a somewhat fair comparison. I think
I'm making that comparison only because I think both directors come off as very ambivalent about what they're presenting.
Absolutely. No, I agree with you completely. I just this is just so out on the artistic spectrum that Wolf of Wall Street isn't. That's the main thing that this one has that prevents me from saying it sucks, or from saying I don't like it. It's so good at that part of it that it makes it more conflicting for me.
I don't know if I would tell people to watch this. At the same time, I wouldn't mind if somebody watched it so we could talk about these ideas, because I like the conversations that it inspires. At the same time, I would feel bad if I showed this to somebody who came away from this, not having that, not like just seeing this as being so ugly and monstrous as it is. Like, there are a lot of people who could watch this in a way that could be very traumatizing, and I understand that.
Yeah, and that's part of why it took so long for us to finally talk about it. We've, in a lot of ways, been avoiding it.
Yeah. I don't want to say the thing about trigger warnings, but certainly this is a movie that, being that it has so much about violence and rape and sex, that it does definitely, if you're somebody who's been through that, this can be very triggering and very hard to watch.
Absolutely. Anything else on A Clockwork Orange before we move on?
Not really.
All right. 1992, we had Hurricane Smith, Into the Sun, Shining Through, and Voyager. Did you spend any time with any of those?
I didn't watch any of them. I know I've seen Shining Through, which I believe is Michael Douglas and Melanie Griffith. I think it's a World War II spy movie, I think. I'm remembering the right movie. I might not be, but I think that's what it was. And I didn't think it was very good when I saw it, and I still don't think it's very good today.
Nice. Let's see here. All right. Next week. Sorry, my daughter's trying to get me to pick her up because she doesn't want to be where she's at anymore. Well, she should have thought about that before she left. All right. Next week we got Pam. I just watched the Clockwork Orange, and I'm the powerful one in our, dynamic, family dynamic. So I'm bullying her a little bit, and she's going to have to wait it out. Thank you, Kubrick. Next week, we got Jackass Forever and Moonfall. Those are the big movies. We also will talk about Pam and Tommy. It's a 8-episode show from the director of I, Tonya. Seth Rogen's behind it. Pam and Tommy. What else do we got? We're not going to talk about all these movies, but these are all the options. Polystyrene. I Am a Cliche.
It's Styrene.
Styrene? Okay.
Yeah.
Who Are You?
It's a documentary.
Who Are You People? The Worst Person in the World. Airdoll. Breaking Bread. Last Survivors. The Long Night. The Wolf and the Lion. The Black Phone. Imminence. The Other Me. Our classic is going to be Capricorn 1 to go along with Moonfall. And in 1992, Mississippi Masala, Final Analysis, and Medicine Man all came out. I'm
kind of eager to watch Medicine Man just because I have such distinct memories of that Sean Connery ponytail.
Have fun. All right, let's move over for a little bit of flick chart, and then I'll go pick my daughter up. She just broke up with her boyfriend. That's why I think she wants to leave, if I'm being honest with you.
That's sad.
Yeah, she did all of it, though. He didn't want to. And he was a good kid, too. I feel bad for him. Anyway, as I air all that, but nobody who cares. Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, or American Beauty?
Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves.
That's so fucking hard for me.
I hate American Beauty.
I loved it for so long, though.
Yeah, I get it.
And yeah, I'll just go with you. I'm not gonna. Big Hero 6. Thank you for smoking.
Admittedly, it's not entirely fair for you on that one, so right. I understand.
If Kevin Spacey wasn't a total creep, I would have taken American Beauty all day long.
Yeah, if it starred Nicolas Cage,
sure.
Which it did, actually we should have picked it because it didn't star Nicolas Cage. I forgot about our show canon.
Wish there's a way to make that happen. Big Hero 6, thank you for smoking.
I love Big Hero 6, but it's thank you for smoking.
Agreed.
Never heard of that movie. Came out in 1896. There's no way I've heard of that.
Warrior, View from the Top.
They both aren't very good. A View from the Top, because I just didn't enjoy Warrior.
I actually really liked Warrior. I remember you not liking it, though. So we can flip it. Of course, I win when it doesn't matter.
I don't love A View from the Top. I don't. Right. So
3 billboards outside Ebbing, Missouri, 2 weeks notice.
3 billboards.
Das Boot, The Professional.
It's tough. Wow. I don't know where to go on that. Where are you going on that one?
Going The Professional. I did not enjoy Das Boot. Just way too long.
All right, I'll go with you. Yeah. I mean, I prefer a movie that's shorter.
I feel like as time goes on, that director is going to have things that are going to come out and make his movies hard to watch as well. I think they're already kind of out there. But still 4 hours. So horrible. Fantastic Beasts, The Crimes of Grindelwald, Pee-wee's Big Adventure.
Pee-wee's Big Adventure.
Agreed. A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2, Freddy's Revenge, or Ghost Ship.
Nightmare on Elm Street 2.
Yeah. The Craft, Midnight Cowboy.
The Craft. Fuck Midnight Cowboy.
Yeah.
60s bullshit.
Who Framed Roger Rabbit, Tommy Boy.
Roger Rabbit.
Yeah.
I did watch a great biography of Farley, though, that makes me kind of love Tommy Boy a little bit more.
Where was that at?
It was just on YouTube. It was an A&E biography that just happened to be on YouTube, and it's cool. Really good. Yeah.
48 Hours or U.S. Marshals?
48 Hours. I'm not a big fan of 48 Hours, but it's better than U.S. Marshals.
Just Married, Rear Window.
Rear Window.
Jack Reacher, City of God.
Two good movies in very different ways, but obviously City of God is a masterpiece, and Jack Reacher is, it's an action. It's a good action movie.
Terminator Salvation, Far and Away.
Far and Away. That's just how bad Terminator Salvation is.
Salem's Lot, The Fifth Element.
I've not seen Salem's Lot, have you?
No.
Ugh, I've never seen it.
Doubt, The Fifth Element.
That's tough. I love The Fifth Element. Fuck. But Doubt is so good. Where are you going?
Did Luc Besson do The Fifth Element too?
Yeah.
I'm going Doubt.
All right, I'll go with you.
I'm with you, but again, I'm starting to. I don't know.
Yeah.
Powerful people are just not good. Rogue One, Knowing.
Rogue One. I would love to get Josh on that one.
Oh, he'd take the Knowing all day. City Lights or Superman 4.
City Lights, by a lot.
The Shape of Water, The Wolverine.
The Shape of Water.
Absolutely. The Cider House Rules, 48 Hours.
48 Hours. By a lot.
Bend It Like Beckham, Freddie Got Fingered.
I don't know.
I don't care.
At least Freddie Got Fingered is memorable. Like, I have an opinion of Freddie Got Fingered. Like, Bend It Like Beckham is just the absence of a movie.
Yeah, all it did was introduce me to David Beckham, and I didn't even see the movie. Kill Bill Volume 2, Can't Hardly Wait.
Yeah, of course. Kill Bill 2.
Rothpod? Okay.
No.
Splash, Godzilla 2014.
Splash.
Yes.
The one where they don't use her hair to cover her butt.
Right. Yeah. If it's the Disney Plus version, I'm going Godzilla.
Is that a porn version of the very Close Encounters?
I've never heard of it, but the cover kind of looks like it might be.
I don't think I've seen either of those movies.
Yeah, the other one looks like.
I know the other one's Dolly. The other one's Dolly Parton as a therapist, but I don't remember if I've ever seen that. Jesus Christ! What the fuck?
American Pie 2, Harold and Kumar Go to White Castle. Two movies we watched today. We'd probably be like, yeah, that is funny that I remember.
I don't know what to do. I think Harold and Kumar, is probably because I like those guys so much. I like the American Pie guys though too. So I mean, I'm kind of two minds. I mean, I don't know where to go on this, honestly.
It's hard for me too. I've watched American Pie 2 more, but there's a whole scene, long scene of just them. You two kiss first, and then we'll kiss, and then you two do that, and it's just kind of probably cringeworthy watching that today. And Harold and Kumar, this is the original one, so at least if it was American Pie versus this, I probably would have gone American Pie, but since it's a sequel versus the original, I'll go Harold and Kumar. John Carter, Weird Science.
Weird Science.
Fracture, House of Whipcord.
Never seen House of Whipcord. Looks like another porn movie. Why are they putting porn on here?
Yeah, it looked like or 70s exploitation. Fracture or Arthur?
Arthur. Fracture's pretty bad.
The Big Sleep, Night at the Museum.
The Big Sleep.
When Harry Met Sally Without a Paddle.
When Harry Met Sally.
It's like we're not even trying anymore. Stir of Echoes, The Visitor.
Those are two really good movies, but I think we have to stick with Show Canon and pick Stir of Echoes. We're going to make that movie popular if it kills us.
I'm not kidding you. When I saw that movie, I was like, The Sixth Sense, who gives a fuck about this movie? I'm not kidding. I also watched it in an empty theater, which made it that much crazier. I love
same.
I love the Paint It Black redone.
That was so good. Yeah,
so fucking good, and everybody's just like, it's fine. It's like, whatever.
that's gonna be our Phantoms. It's like Stir of Echoes. Stir of Echoes is the bomb, man.
Yeah, it's 6 Degrees of Ben Affleck and Stir of Echoes. Can't forget it was the bomb.
Or change it and Nicolas Cage is Kevin Spacey. that's Show Canon right now.
Yeah. All right, that's our show. We're leaving on that one. All right, talk to you later.
Yeah.
Bye.